The huge insect ship appeared suddenly from the dark emptiness of space and slammed into the small human transport vessel with no warning at all. The Krell were very tall beings, covered in hard, shiny shells, and their front arms ended in long, sharp blades that could cut through metal. They always moved together in perfect lines because their minds connected like one single giant mind. The humans inside the transport ship had almost no time to react or defend themselves. A little girl named Lila lived on that transport. She was just 7 years old, with soft brown hair that fell to her shoulders and large, bright eyes full of wonder. Lila traveled with her father, who spent his days studying unusual animals from distant planets. Her closest friend was not a human child, but a fierce small creature named Razor. He was a honey badger with thick, tough black and white fur, and a wide face that always looked angry and ready to fight. When the Krell soldiers burst through the broken doors of the transport, they pulled every human out into the open airlock. They separated grown-ups from children very quickly. When they noticed Razor snarling and snapping his powerful jaws at their legs, they made strange clicking laughter sounds from their mouthparts. One tall soldier grabbed Lila by her thin arm and dragged her away down a cold metal hallway. Razor tried very hard to follow with his short, powerful legs, but another soldier swung a heavy metal rod and struck him hard across the head. Razor dropped to the floor and stayed still for several long seconds. The soldiers carried Lila deeper into their massive prison ship. The walls were thick gray steel, and every light burned bright white without any warmth. They marched her through endless long corridors until they reached a tiny windowless room. One soldier pushed her roughly inside, and the heavy door slammed shut behind her. 2 more soldiers entered, carrying very thick chains made from the special super-strong metal alloy. Chains glowed faint blue because powerful energy fields ran through them to stop any prisoner from breaking free. Lila started to cry and tried to pull her arms away, but the tall insects were far too strong for her small body. They wrapped the heavy chains tightly around her thin wrists, and then around her ankles. The cold metal pressed hard against her skin and felt impossibly heavy for such a little girl. The chains linked to thick rings bolted deep into the floor, so she could only sit or kneel in one small spot. The soldiers left the room without speaking one word, and the door locked again with a loud final sound. Lila sat on the hard, cold floor and stared down at the shining chains. She twisted her hands and pulled with all her strength, but the metal only scraped her skin raw and made it bleed a little. She stopped trying and let big tears roll down her cheeks. She spoke very softly to herself. Razor will come. He always comes back to me. In a different section of the huge ship, the Krell had locked Razor inside a solid box built from thick durasteel plates. The box had only tiny air holes punched in the sides and a heavy lock that required a special code to open. Razor lay inside the darkness, still dazed from the hard blow to his head. The Krell believed such a small, furry animal could never cause real trouble, so they turned off the lights in that storage area and left him alone, without another thought. High up in the command center, the leader of the Krell, named Overseer Vrax, watched the events unfold on a large glowing screen. He had long curved mandibles that clicked together when he spoke, and bright green eyes that never needed to blink. He studied the picture of the small crying girl, locked in chains, and made a pleased rattling sound deep in his throat. The young of soft-skinned species break so quickly, he told the officer standing nearby. We will hold her here until the human rescue fleet arrives. Then we will trade the child for many valuable things. And advantages. The officers made agreeing clicks and nods with their sharp heads. They lowered the power on the cameras inside Leela room, so only basic monitoring continued. No one bothered to check the Durasteel box where Razor waited. No one heard the first faint scratching noises that began to come from inside the dark prison box. Razor started to wake up slowly. His head throbbed from the strike. But the sleepy drugs that Krell used wore off much faster than they expected. Honey badgers had bodies that fought poisons better than most living creatures. He opened his small dark eyes inside the pitch-black box and drew in deep breaths through his nose. He smelled cold metal, sharp oil, and very far away, the familiar warm scent of Leela, his girl. He hated tight closed spaces more than anything else in the world. He pushed hard against the walls with his strong short legs, but the box stayed solid. He turned his head and sank his sharp teeth into the metal right next to the lock. Powerful jaws clamped down and scraped loudly. He bit again and again, because his teeth and jaw strength came from millions of years of breaking hard shells, digging through rocky ground, and crushing bones. Sparks flew from the chewed metal, and he tasted burned wires inside the lock mechanism. After many bites, the lock gave a small sharp pop, and the door cracked open, just enough for him to squeeze through. Razor forced his head out first, then twisted his muscular shoulders and pushed his whole body free. He dropped onto the cold floor of the corridor and shook his fur hard to clear his mind. The hallway stretched long and empty in both directions, with dim red emergency lights glowing along the ceiling. He lifted his nose high, sniffed deeply, and locked onto Leela's scent, mixed with the sour, sharp smell of Krell all around him. He started moving low to the ground, silent and fast. One lone Krell guard stood at the far end of the corridor, holding a long energy spear, the small bloody shadow, racing along the wall until it was too late. Razor launched himself forward and sank his teeth deep into the soft joint behind the guard knee. The Krell let out a high scream and crashed down. Razor kept his jaws locked tight and twisted his head hard until something important tore. The guard stopped moving completely. Razor released the leg, licked blood from his muzzle once, and continued down the hall without pause. Loud alarms exploded through the entire ship. Red warning lights flashed everywhere, and heavy boots pounded in every direction. Krell's soldiers rushed to their battle stations, but none of them understood yet that one small furious animal caused all the chaos. Razor slipped into a narrow ventilation shaft and crawled forward. He followed the scent trail that grew stronger with every careful step. His heart beat steady and strong inside his chest. He felt no fear, only the burning need to reach his girl. Leela heard the alarms echoing far away, through the thick walls of her cell. She lifted her head and listened hard. The chains pulled painfully on her arms when she tried to stand, so she sat back down again. She closed her eyes tight and pictured Razor running through the dark ship, searching for her. A tiny smile touched her lips, even while tears still fell. "He is coming," she whispered again and again. "He is coming for me." The giant Krell ship continued flying through the cold void of space. The insect crew felt certain they controlled every creature inside their metal walls. They felt completely sure nothing could challenge their power. They were completely wrong. One small determined honey badger moved closer to the chained child with every passing minute. Nothing in the galaxy would stop him from reaching her. Razor crawled through the narrow, dark vents of the huge Krell ship. His belly scraped against cold metal, and his claws made tiny scratches on the walls. He smelled oil, blood, and fear from the guards he already hurt. He moved forward, quick and quiet, turning his body sideways when the space became too tight. The alarms still screamed loud through the ship, and heavy boots ran in the halls far below him. He found a small grate that looked down into a large room. Many tall Krell stood there, holding long, glowing weapons. They talked fast in their sharp, clicking language and pointed at bright screens showing different parts of the ship. Razor sniffed the air. Leela was not in this room, so he kept crawling. He squeezed through another sharp turn and dropped down into a narrow service tunnel. Red lights blinked along the ceiling, but he paid no attention to them. His nose stayed high. He followed the warm, familiar scent of Leela that grows stronger with every step. 2 Krell cleaned dark blood from the floor. One insect turned his head and saw the small bloody shape. Razor did not wait. He charged, low and fast. He sank his teeth into the soft joint behind the first guard knee. The Krell screamed high and fell hard. Razor jumped to the second one and tore at the throat with powerful twists. The fight ended in seconds. Both tall insects lay still on the floor. Razor licked blood from his muzzle and ran on without stopping. He found a set of steep metal stairs going up. He climbed them one by one. His short legs made each step hard, but he never slowed. At the top, he pushed a loose panel with his strong head and slipped into a wide, bright corridor. Cameras turned slowly in every direction, watching for trouble. Razor stayed low against the wall. His fur blended a little with the shadows. 4 Krell soldiers came around the corner fast. They saw the small bloody animal and made clicking laughs. One raised a long energy lance. Razor did not wait. Straight at them. The first soldier swung his weapon, but missed. Razor went under the legs and bit deep into the ankle. The soldier dropped with a scream. Razor climbed the falling body and tore at the face. The other 3 fired bright energy shots that burned holes in the wall. Razor dodged low and jumped to the next soldier. He bit the arm that held the lance. The weapon fell clattering. The third soldier tried to stab down. Razor twisted away and bit the leg, then climbed up to reach the neck. The last soldier backed away in fear, but Razor was faster. He lunged and finished the fight with one hard bite to the throat. All 4 lay dead in the corridor. Razor stood, breathing hard. Smoke rose from places where energy had burned his thick fur. He shook his body hard, then ran down the hall. He found another vent and slipped inside. The scent pulled him left, then up. He moved even faster now. Leela sat alone in her small, cold cell. The heavy chains hurt her wrists more with every minute she tried to pull one hand free again. The skin tore a little, but the metal stayed tight. She stopped and took slow, deep breaths. She looked at the locked door and waited. Something warm inside her chest told her Razor was close. She felt it like a quiet promise. She closed her eyes and pictured his strong little body running through the dark. She whispered soft words. Razor is coming. He always finds me. Outside her door, 2 guards stood tall with sharp spears. They talked in low clicks about the small animal causing so much trouble. One said it must be dead by now. The other clicked agreement and nodded. They did not look up at the vent cover right above their heads. Razor reached that vent high above the guards. He smelled them both, and Leela right behind the door. His heart beat faster. He pushed the vent cover with his head. It bent a little. He pushed again with all his strength. It bent more. He backed up as far as the tight space allowed, then ran forward and slammed his body against the cover. Metal flew off and hit one guard hard in the head. The guard fell down surprised. Razor dropped from the ceiling like a shadow. He landed on the second guard and sank his teeth into the neck. The first guard stood up, shaking his head, and raised his spear. Razor jumped off the dead one and charged. The spear missed wide. Razor bit the leg, then climbed the tall body fast. He reached the face and bit hard into the soft part. The guard screamed once, then fell silent. Both guards lay still. Razor stood over them, breathing fast. The door to Leela's cell stayed closed and locked. Razor smelled her so close, his nose almost touched the metal. He scratched at the lock with sharp claws. The metal scraped, but did not give. He opened his powerful jaws and bit down on the lock instead. His teeth met hard alloy. He bit again and twisted his head. His jaw hurt from the pressure, but he did not stop. Sparks flew from the chewed metal. The lock cracked loud. He backed up and slammed his shoulder against the door. Once it shook twice, It groaned 3 times. The hinges started to bend. He hit again with everything he had. The door burst open inward and crashed against the wall. Razor stood in the doorway, his fur matted with blood and dirt, one eye swollen almost shut, but the other eye burned bright and fierce. Lila lifted her head. Her face changed from tired and sad to happy in one heartbeat. "Razor," she said in a small, soft voice. He ran straight to her and pushed his head hard against her chest. She wrapped her arms around him as much as the chains allowed. She cried happy tears that fell on his fur. Razor did not wait for more hugs. He turned to the thick chains on her ankles. He opened his jaws wide and closed them around the glowing metal. He pulled and twisted hard. The alloy bent just a little. He bit again, deeper. Sparks flew brighter. The chain link cracked loud. He moved to the next link and did the same thing again and again. His teeth screamed against the metal. But he kept going. Piece by piece the chains broke. Links fell to the floor like broken toys. When the last chain snapped, Lila pulled her hands free. She rubbed her red sore wrists, then hugged Razor very tight. She buried her face in his fur. "Thank you, Razor," she said. "You are the strongest. You are my best friend." They sat together for one short moment. Razor licked her cheek. Gentle, she laughed through her tears. Then he stood up and growled low at the open door. More Krell would come soon, very soon. Lila nodded. She understood. They could not stay. She stood up slow. Her legs felt weak from the chains, but she could walk. She put one small hand on his strong back. They stepped out into the corridor together. The alarms rang louder. The ship felt angry, with flashing lights and running feet. Razor did not care. He had his girl back. Nothing else in the galaxy mattered anymore. They moved forward side by side into the dark halls, ready for whatever came next. Lila and Razor moved quickly down the long, dark corridor. The red alarm lights flashed fast overhead and made wild shadows dance on the cold metal walls. Lila kept one small hand on Razor's strong back, so she would not lose him in the chaos. Her bare feet felt icy on the floor, but she did not make any sound of complaint. Razor walked ahead, with his head low and ears turned forward. He sniffed every corner and dark spot before they turned into it. They came to a wide crossing where 3 tall Krell soldiers ran straight toward them with glowing energy spears raised high. Razor let out a deep, low growl that rumbled through his chest. The sound made the insects freeze for one short second. That second gave Razor the chance he needed. He charged forward like a black and white bullet. He jumped high and slammed into the chest of the middle soldier. The Krell fell backward hard and crashed into the other 2. All 3 tumbled down in a heap of long limbs and sharp armor against the wall and watched with wide eyes. Razor fought like a storm. He bit and twisted and tore. He did not stop, even when bright energy burns touched his thick fur. The first Krell tried to stand up. Razor went straight for the throat and ended that fight fast. The second soldier raised his lance to stab down. Razor dodged low under the swing and bit deep into the arm holding the weapon. The lance clattered to the floor. The third Krell fired a shot that grazed Razor's side and left a smoking line in his fur. Razor turned quick and jumped onto that soldier too. He climbed the tall body and bit hard into the neck until the insect stopped moving. When the short fight ended, the 3 Krell lay still on the floor. Razor stood over them, breathing hard. Smoke curled up from the burned places on his back. He shook his whole body once to throw off the pain, then looked back at Lila. She ran to him and touched the hurt spot on his side. Very gentle. He licked her hand one time. Forward again. They found a small lift at the end of the hall. Razor pushed the button panel with his nose. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Lila stepped inside first. Razor followed right behind her. The lift moved upward with a low hum. Lila leaned against the wall. She felt tired deep in her bones, but safe with Razor close. The lift stopped, and the doors opened to a bigger, brighter hall, with many closed doors along both sides. Razor sniffed the air, and chose one door on the left. He scratched at it with sharp claws. Lila tried the handle. It turned easy. They slipped inside. The room had many glowing screens and control panels. One big screen showed a map of the whole ship. Red dots moved fast everywhere, showing where Krell soldiers searched. Lila pointed to a small green dot far away on the edge. That might be escape pods, she said, in a quiet voice. Razor looked at the screen, then at her. He understood. They needed to go that way to get free. They left the room and ran again. Krell appeared in every new hall. Razor fought them all without pause. He never backed away. Even when bigger groups came, he used his teeth, his claws, and his pure, endless anger. One very large soldier managed to pin him down to the floor with a heavy armored foot. Razor twisted his body in ways no normal animal could. He bit through the weak joint in the armor at the neck, and the soldier let go screaming. Razor finished him quick. Leela stayed close behind. She picked up a small sharp piece of broken metal from the floor and held it tight in her hand. She did not know how to fight like Razor, but she wanted to help if she could. She would not let anyone take him away again. They reached a huge open area full of big humming machines. The ceiling stretched high above them, with thick pipes running everywhere. Razor smelled fresh air coming from somewhere up high. That meant a way out to space. He led Leela to a narrow metal ladder fixed to the wall. She started climbing first, her hands still, hurt from the chains. But she went slow and steady. Razor climbed right behind her, pushing her legs gently with his head when she slowed down. At the top, they stepped onto a high, narrow walkway that ran over the giant engines. The hot air from below made sweat on Lila's face and made Razor's fur look wet and dark. They walked carefully along the thin path, holding the rail tight. At the far end, they saw a heavy door with a bright symbol that meant escape pods. Before they could reach it, Overseer Vrax stepped out from a side passage with 10 strong soldiers behind him. He stood very tall and clicked his mandibles loud. "You think a tiny beast can win against us?" he said in his hard, clicking voice. "The child goes back to chains. The animal dies slow and painful." Razor growled louder than ever before. The sound filled the whole open space. He stepped in front of Lila, with his legs spread wide. The soldiers raised their weapons high. Vrax lifted one sharp claw. "Stop," he ordered. "Long this little rodent can last against real warriors." Razor did not wait for them to move first. He ran straight at Vrax. The big insect swung a long blade arm down fast. Razor ducked low under it and bit deep into the leg joint. Vrax stepped back in surprise. Razor used the moment to climb up the tall body. Quick he reached the face and sank his teeth into one hard mandible. Vrax screamed loud and tried to pull the small animal off with his claws. Razor held on tight and twisted harder. The soldiers fired energy shots, but they missed because Vrax moved too much in pain. Lila watched from the walkway. Her heart beat fast. She shouted, "Razor, be careful!" He did not seem to hear, or maybe he did not care. He kept biting and tearing until Vrax dropped to his knees with a crash. Razor jumped down from the fallen leader and faced the 10 soldiers. They hesitated for one heartbeat. Razor charged again. One soldier fell fast under his teeth. Another turned to run. Lila ran to the escape door, pulled the handle hard. It opened with a hiss. She called out, "Razor, come now!" Razor turned away from the fight and ran to her full speed. They slipped through the door together. It closed behind them with a heavy thud. The small room had several round escape pods ready to launch. Lila helped Razor climb into the nearest one. She followed right after him. She found the big red launch button and pressed it hard. The pod shook strong and shot out into open space. The huge Krell ship grew smaller and smaller behind them. Lila hugged Razor very tight. "Thank you," she said over and over. He licked her face gentle and lay down beside her, tired but alive. They floated free in the black together. They did not know exactly where they would land. They only knew no chains held them anymore. The big insect ship came fast out of the black emptiness of space and hit the small human transport without warning. The Krell were tall creatures with hard shells and sharp arms like blades. They moved in perfect order because their minds linked together like one big brain. The humans on the transport had no chance to fight back or run away. Inside the transport lived a little girl named Lila. She was only 7 years old, and she had soft brown hair and big, curious eyes. Lila traveled with her father, who studied strange animals from many worlds. Her best friend was not another child, but a small, fierce animal called Razor. He was a honey badger with thick black and white fur, and a face that always looked ready to bite anything. The Krell soldiers broke open the transport doors and pulled everyone out. They separated the adults from the children right away. When they saw Razor snapping and growling at them, they laughed with clicking sounds from their mouth parts. One soldier grabbed Lila by the arm and dragged her away. Razor tried to follow, but another soldier hit him hard with a metal stick. Razor fell down and stopped moving for a moment. They took Lila deep inside their big prison ship. The walls were cold gray metal, and the lights were bright and white. They walked her down long halls until they reached a small room with no windows. The soldier pushed her inside and locked the door. Then 2 more soldiers came with heavy chains made from special strong metal. The chains glowed a little blue because they had energy inside to keep prisoners still. Lila cried and pulled her arms back, but the soldiers were too strong. They wrapped the thick chains around her small wrists and ankles. The metal felt cold against her skin and very heavy. She could not move much at all. The chains connected to rings on the floor, so she had to sit or kneel. The soldiers left without saying anything, and the door closed with a loud clang. Lila sat on the hard floor and looked at the chains. She tried to twist her hands free, but the metal only hurt her skin more. Tears ran down her face. She whispered soft words to herself. "Razor will come. He always comes." Far away in another part of the ship, the Krell put Razor inside a strong box made of thick durasteel. The box had small air holes and a lock that needed a code. Razor lay inside, still sleepy from the hit he took. The Krell thought a small animal like him was no danger. They turned off the lights in that room and walked away laughing again. The big insect leader named Overseer Vrax watched everything on a screen in his command room. He had long, sharp mandibles and bright green eyes that never blinked. He saw the little girl crying in chains, and he made a happy clicking sound. "The young of soft creatures always break fast," he said to his officers. "We will keep her here until the human ships come. Then we will trade her for many good things." The officers agreed with nods and clicks. Room to low power and stopped watching so closely. No one checked on the honey badger box. No one heard the small scratching sounds that started inside it. Razor woke up slow. His head hurt from the hit, but the sleepy medicine in his body was leaving fast. Honey badgers could fight poison better than most animals. He opened his eyes in the dark box and smelled metal and oil and far away the scent of Lila. He did not like being closed in small spaces. He hated it more than anything. He pushed against the walls with his strong legs. The box did not move. He bit the metal near the lock. His sharp teeth scraped it, sparks came out. He bit again and again. His jaw was made to break hard things like turtle shells and thick roots. He kept biting until he tasted burned wire. The lock made a small pop sound, and the door cracked open just a little. Razor pushed his head through the gap. His shoulders followed, then his strong body. He fell out onto the cold floor and shook himself. Was empty and dark. He lifted his nose and sniffed hard. Lila's scent came from one direction, mixed with the sharp smell of Krell. He started walking that way, low to the ground and quiet. A single Krell guard stood at the end of the hall. He did not see the small shadow moving fast along the wall. Razor jumped. He sank his teeth into the soft part behind the guard knee. The guard screamed and fell. Razor did not let go. He twisted and pulled until something broke. The guard stopped moving. Razor ran past him without looking back. Alarms started ringing loud in the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. Krell's soldiers ran to their posts, but none of them knew what small thing caused the trouble. Razor kept moving through shadows and vents. He followed the scent that mattered most. His heart beat strong and steady. He did not feel tired. He did not feel fear. He only felt the need to find his girl. Lila heard the alarms far away. She lifted her head and listened. The chains pulled on her arms when she tried to stand. She sat back down and hugged her knees. She closed her eyes and pictured Razor running to her. She smiled a tiny smile through her tears. "He is coming," she whispered again. "He is coming." The big ship flew on through space. The Krell thought they controlled everything inside it. They were wrong. A small, determined animal moved closer every minute. Nothing would stop him. Razor moved quick through the dark vents of the Krell ship. The metal around him smelled of oil and fear from the guards he already hurt. He crawled forward on his belly, sometimes turning sideways when the space got tight. His claws scratched soft marks on the walls, but he did not care about noise now. The alarms still screamed, and boots ran in halls below him. He found a grate that looked down into a big room. Many Krell stood there, holding long weapons that glowed at the ends. They talked fast in their clicking language and pointed at screens. Razor smelled no Lila here, so he kept going. He squeezed through another turn and dropped into a narrow service tunnel. Lights blinked red along the ceiling, but he ignored them. His nose led him true. The scent of Lila grew stronger with every step. He passed a room where two Krell cleaned blood from the floor. One turned and saw him. The insect raised its weapon, but Razor was faster. He charged low and bit the leg joint where armor met soft. The Krell fell screaming. Razor jumped to the second one and tore at the throat. The fight lasted only seconds. Both Krell lay still. Razor licked blood from his muzzle and kept moving. He found stairs going up. He climbed them, one by one. His short legs made it hard, but he did not stop. At the top, he pushed through a loose panel and entered a wide corridor. The walls here had more lights, and cameras turned in every direction. A patrol of 4 Krell came around the corner. They saw the small bloody animal and laughed. One pointed a lance. Razor did not wait. He ran straight at them. The first Krell swung but missed. Razor went under the legs and bit the back of the ankle. The soldier dropped. Razor climbed the falling body and bit the face. The others fired energy shots that burned the wall near him. Razor jumped to the next one and tore into the arm holding the weapon. The fight made loud noises. More soldiers would come soon. Razor knew it. He finished the last Krell with a hard bite to the neck, then ran down the hall. He found a vent again and slipped inside. The scent pulled him left, then up. He moved faster now. Leela sat in her small room. The chains hurt her wrists more every minute. She tried to pull one hand free again. Skin came off, but the metal stayed tight. She stopped and breathed slow. She looked at the door and waited. Something inside her knew Razor was close. She felt it like a warm feeling in her chest. Outside the door 2 guards stood with spears. They talked about the small animal causing trouble. One said it must be dead by now. The other clicked and agreed. They did not look at the vent above them. Razor reached that vent. He smelled the guards and Leela together. His heart beat harder. He pushed the cover with his head. It bent a little. He pushed again. It bent more. He backed up, then ran forward and slammed his body against it. The cover flew off and hit one guard in the head. The guard fell surprised. Razor dropped down. He landed on the second guard and bit the neck. The first guard stood up and raised his spear. Razor jumped off the dead one and charged. The spear missed again. Razor bit the leg, then climbed up the body. He reached the face and bit hard. The guard screamed once, then stopped. The door to Leela's room stood closed. Razor smelled her right behind it. He scratched the lock. His claws scraped metal but did nothing. He bit the lock instead. Teeth met hard alloy. He bit again and twisted. His jaw hurt, but he did not stop. Sparks came out. The lock cracked. He hit the door with his shoulder once, twice, 3 times. The hinges groaned. He hit again. The door flew open inward. Razor stood in the doorway, covered in blood and dirt. His one eye swelled shut, but the other burned bright. Leela looked up. Her face changed from sad to happy in 1 second. "Razor," she said, soft. He ran to her and pushed his head against her chest. She put her arms around him as much as the chains let her. She cried again, but these were happy tears. Razor did not stay still. He turned to the chains on her ankles. His teeth closed around the thick metal. He pulled and twisted. The alloy bent a little. He bit harder. Sparks flew again. The chain link cracked. He moved to the next link and did the same. Leela watched with wide eyes. She knew Razor never gave up. She spoke soft words to him. "You are the strongest, Razor. You are my best friend." He kept biting. The metal screamed under his teeth. Piece by piece the chains broke. Links fell to the floor like broken toys. When the last chain snapped, Leela pulled her hands free. She rubbed her sore wrists, then hugged Razor tight. They sat together for 1 moment. Razor licked her face. She laughed through tears. Then he stood up and growled low at the door. More Krell would come soon. Leela nodded. She understood. They had to move. Razor walked to the door and looked out. The hall stayed empty for now. He turned back to Leela and waited. She stood up slow. But she could walk. She put her hand on his back, and they stepped out together. The alarm still rang. The ship felt alive with angry insects looking for them. Razor did not care. He had his girl back. Nothing else mattered. Lila and Razor moved fast down the long hall. The red alarm lights flashed over their heads and made shadows jump on the walls. Lila held one hand on Razor back to stay close. Her bare feet felt cold on the metal floor, but she did not complain. Razor walked ahead, with his head low and ears up. He sniffed every corner before they turned. They reached a cross hall. 3 Krell soldiers ran toward them with weapons ready. Razor growled deep in his chest. The sound made the insects stop for 1 second. That second was enough. Razor charged straight at the middle one. He jumped high and hit the chest. The Krell fell back into the others. All 3 crashed down. Lila stayed back. She watched Razor fight. He bit and twisted and tore. He did not stop, even when energy burns touched his fur. The first Krell tried to stand. Razor went for the throat. The second raised a lance. Razor dodged and bit the arm. The third fired a shot that grazed Razor's side. Razor turned and jumped on him too. When it ended, the 3 Krell lay still. Razor stood over them, breathing hard. Smoke rose from his burned fur. He shook himself and looked at Leela. She ran to him and touched the hurt place gentle. He licked her hand once, then started walking again. They found a small lift that went up. Razor pushed the button with his nose. The doors closed and the lift moved. Leela leaned against the wall. She felt tired, but safe with Razor near. The lift stopped and the doors opened to a bigger hall with many doors. Razor sniffed and chose one door. He scratched it. Leela tried the handle. It opened. They went inside. The room had screens and controls. She saw a map of the ship on one big screen. Red dots moved everywhere, showing Krell soldiers looking for them. Leela pointed to a green dot far away. "That might be escape pods," she said. Razor looked at the screen, then at her. He understood. They needed to go that way. They left the room and ran again. More Krell appeared in every hall. Razor fought them all. He never backed away. Even when numbers grew, he used teeth and claws and pure anger. One big soldier pinned him to the ground. Razor twisted his body in ways no other animal could. He bit through the armor at the neck, and the soldier let go. Leela stayed close. She picked up a small metal piece from the floor and held it tight. She did not know how to fight, but she wanted to help Razor if she could. They reached a wide-open area with many machines. The ceiling here was high and full of pipes. Razor smelled fresh air coming from somewhere above. That meant a way out. He led Leela to a ladder on the wall. She climbed first slow, because her hands still hurt. Razor climbed behind her, pushing her gently when she slowed. At the top, they found a narrow walkway over big engines. The heat made sweat on Leela's face. Razor fur looked wet too. They walked careful along the metal path. At the end, they saw a door marked with a symbol for escape. P. Before they reached it, Overseer Vrax appeared with 10 soldiers. He stood tall and clicked loud. "You think a small beast can win?" he said. "The child will go back to chains. The animal will die slow." P. Razor growled louder than before. He stepped in front of Leela. The soldiers raised weapons. Vrax lifted one claw. "Stop," he said. "Let us see how long this rodent lasts." Razor did not wait. He ran straight at Vrax. The big insect swung a blade arm. Razor ducked and bit the leg. Vrax stepped back, surprised. Razor climbed up the body fast. He reached the face and bit the mandible. Vrax screamed and tried to pull him off. Razor held tight.